An empty space stands still and bare. The sound of footsteps then fills the air. Look up, look up, look up and see. What color will it be? What is grey?
My balloon is grey.
What else is grey? An elephant is grey. Rain clouds look grey. A grey-looking shark. Can you spot anything that's grey? A heron with grey feathers. Grey dolphins play. Soft grey. Cozy grey to make cuddly grey. Grey roads and cities. Lots of things are grey, aren't they? You can explore the colour grey through art.
What colour is this?
Grey!
Excellent. Yes, it is indeed grey. Light or dark grey?
Light.
I think it's a light grey, definitely.
Do you know how to make grey? Black and white. Mix them together and it makes grey. You can make lots of patterns with paint. And it's fun to paint with your hands.
What can we think of that's the colour grey?
An elephant.
Oh, excellent. Now I'm thinking of something big that lived many, many years ago.
T-Rex.
What do T-Rexes turn into?
Fossils.
Excellent. Shall we make a fossil from our stones? What else can we think of that's the colour grey?
A mountain.
A mountain, they can look grey as well.
A piece of art that looks like a fossil using grey stones. You can find grey rocks and stones all around the world that have formed into all sorts of interesting shapes and patterns. There are also huge grey stones that have been used to make monuments, made into giant faces, and used to build very long walls. Grey is a colour that is all around us. Grey loves to drift, to take it steady, calm and cool. Grey loves to watch the world go by and dive down deep. Grey turns cold into cozy and snug, and thoughts into pictures. Grey likes to stand silent and still, but sometimes it says, "Follow me. Let's explore."